All right, so we continue with our topic, laws of Ribbis, interest, right? And it's Siman 65, and we start with halacha 22. So the last halacha was about rental agreement, and we said that the owner said, if you want to if you want to pay me my month by month, it's one coin, gold coin, whatever, a month, right? But if you're going to prepay me, I'm going to take 10, right? So meaning the discount. So it's very interesting, and we said that there is no problem whatsoever because there is no problem whatsoever. It's not going to be Ribbis if he is going to pay on time, because it's not like he's paying late or something. He's paying on time, and in the beginning of the month. Okay, all right. That was our last halacha. Next one, 22. But only with regard to rental of the land, it is permitted for him to add to rental amount in this manner, because the renter acquires the land immediately, and the payment is thus considered rent rather than loan. So it's very interesting. As soon as that person pays us rent for a field, let's say, maybe it's going to be easy. So he acquired the field, and whatever grows in his field, like even now, it's something started growing now, 2 days after he bought the field. Of course, he did not plant nothing, so nobody can come and say, you know what, it's actually mine. Sorry, I forgot. No, that's it. He acquired it. Okay. So that's very, very good in this case, meaning the land is his. So he's purchasing, he's not taking a loan of the money, he's actually paying for land. Okay. But to add to the wages of the laborer, is prohibited in this manner. That is, if one hires a person to do work for him at the later day, and advances the wages to him today, before he commences work, and in return he will perform the labor at the less than appropriate rate, this is prohibited. For since the laborer is not committing himself to engage in work from now, the funds that the employer advances are considered a loan. However, if the worker commences his work immediately, there is a moment the funds are advanced without any delay. Even though he will not complete his work until after many days, it is permissible to advance his wages, okay, in return for performance of his labor inexpensively. For since he will begin his work immediately, the money is deemed wages and not a loan. Okay, so let's do it from the beginning, and we're going to explain. Very, very interesting. Two halachas. Okay, so one more time, and we're going to explain. But only with regard to rental of the land, it is permitted for him to add to the rental amount in this manner. Meaning, I prefer that you pay me a year in advance. Okay, that's what I prefer. But I don't want to come every month, every 2 months. That's too much work for me. I live in the city, you live in a village. Okay, I don't need that, right? But if you prefer, if you insist on this, so yeah, pay me whatever. If you want to prepay, it's 10 coins. If you want to pay month by month, it's 1 coin a month, so 12 coins. Okay. Okay, so it is permissible to do it in a rent in this manner because the renter acquires the land immediately, right? Immediately, and the payment is thus considered rent rather than loan, meaning that he's in a land, he's in a land, and he pays, and the land is his. He can do whatever he wants with that. Okay. Commentary: there is, even though he's only obligated to pay the rent at the end of each month, he acquires the rights to the property for the duration of the lease at the outset. when amendments is made. So it's very interesting. Here is a little different formula that we used to, right? So but really, at least, so we pay not at the end of the month. We pay in the beginning of the month. So you rent the apartment, you pay in the first, whatever you agree on third until fifth, whatever is it, right? But you paying for upcoming months. It's not like you lived off months and then you pay for a previous one. But that's not what they used to do, right? At least, okay. So, but anyway, that doesn't matter. Even if he paid before, like in the beginning of the month, so it doesn't matter. As soon as he paid, he already acquired. But properly, like if it's if we consider rented transaction, so he got the land right now, he should pay. Okay. Okay, continue. He acquires the right to the property for duration of the lease at the outset, meaning this renter. So it's his from the outset, even though in this case, even if he is going to pay money later. When agreement is made. Thus, even if he pays the entire amount at that time, he is not lending the owner money, but paying for the rental of the land that he has already acquired. Okay, so it's very interesting statement. One more time, last line. Thus, even if he pays the entire amount at that time, entire amount, let's say for a month or for a year, but not for the rental of the land. No, sorry. He's not lending the owners the money, but pays for the rental of the land that he has already acquired. That's it. So it's not like he's giving him like loan, right? It's not even loan. Why they are talking about loan? Because that's not how much like he's going to use like this this field, let's say, only over the period of time. So it looks like loan, but it's not. So he acquires the land, this field, and it is going to be his for the whole year. Okay. Continue. But to add the wages to a laborer is prohibited in this manner. Right. So let's see. Right. So we're talking about laborer, maybe like seasonal labor or something. That is, if one hires a person to do work for him in a later date, and he advances the wages to him today. Okay, so it's so the way that I see this situation is it's a seasonal worker and a winter, right? And these people they just spend all of their money. They drank on all this money. I mean, if you go to bar, I think it's very expensive. Okay, so he finished his money and he said, "Please, I'd like to come back to work for you in the spring." The guy said, "Okay, so it's nice to have you in the spring, but come in the spring." Said, "But I need to feed my family. I'm going to die. If you're not going to give me money, advance me money, I'm going to come. You know me, right? I'm going to come." And this guy, he wants money so much. He needs money so urgently. So he said, "Look, I'm going to work for you like 2 months, and usually you pay me such and such. I'm going to work for less." Right. So that's the situation. Okay, so one more time, there is if one hires a person to do work for him at later date, and he advances the wages to him today before the commences work, and and in return he will perform the labor at the less than appropriate rate, meaning that he's an interest. So he's going to work, yes, but he's going to charge him less for his work. So it is clear, it is like a financial benefit to this to the employer for advancing funds, and it's not considered to be salary paid in advance. It's considered to be loan, right? And loan, of course, you can return with money, you can return with merchandise if the other side agree, or you can return with your work. Say, I'm going to work for you for this amount of money. right? So it's considered 100% loan. 56 commentary. Since the worker is not committing himself to begin work now, the advance of the wages amount is nothing more than a loan that will be repaid later in the form of labor, exactly as we explained. Not in the form of money, but in the form of labor, and in for much less money. So meaning that this person, the employer, so he invests, let's say he gave him 1,000, and later on this guy is going to work for this employer for the amount like 1,600. So because it's clear interest, because he gave this 1,000, advanced this 1,000, he got back like work of value of 600 extra. Okay, so it's clear Ribbis. Therefore, since he is accepting less than appropriate rate in return for being paid in advance, when he later pays his debt with a more valuable work, he has paid Ribbis, which is prohibited. So in other words, if he would charge a regular price, right, meaning you've been paying me for this field to take care of the field such and such amount for a season, so if he offers the same price, there is no problem. Okay, so it's not going to be a loan. I mean, the guy is not benefiting anyhow. Okay. However, if the worker commences work immediately, or like that one, or this situation, when the worker commences the work immediately, meaning some people, they're so desperate, and I saw it and I heard about the cases, so they're so desperate that when they've been out of work for so long, so as soon as you hire them, they already ask you for advance, right? So because like some money, like please pay me ahead. Look, I love your job. I'm going to stay here. Let's say we're not talking about like draggy or something like this crooks that we have to. We're talking about honest person was out of work for whatever reason. So and he would ask for to advance some payment. Okay, there is no problem since he's already working. There is no problem. However, the whole sentence. However, if the worker commences his work, there is the moment the funds are advanced without delay, right? Even though he will not complete his work until after many days, it is permitted to advance his wages. So meaning I paid him in advance, and he's going to work, and I would not need to pay him for the next 3 months, let's say. No problem. In return for his performing the labor inexpensively, right? So he advanced loan, so he would work for him for less. For since he will be given work immediately, the money is deemed wages and not a loan. Okay, very, very straightforward. So C. Baba Basar's 87a with Rashba and Shita Mikubesets. Okay. Any questions on what we said in this sieve? Okay. So if no question, we continue. Next one, 23. So let me see how. It is permitted to add a wedding dowry. For example, if one pledges dowry for his daughter, and the father-in-law stipulates that with his son-in-law, that for each year that son-in-law will allow the dowry to remain with his father-in-law, there is that the son-in-law will delay collecting it. His father-in-law will give him such and such an amount as a compensation. It is permitted, since this is merely as if he is providing additional dowry. And it is as if he told him, I'm giving you gift for such and such an amount by certain time. And if I don't give it to you by that time, I will increase the gift by such and such amount, which is permitted. Since he does not yet owe him the money, he may incorporate such a conditions as a part of dowry obligation. Very, very interesting. But this is only if they made a stipulation immediately at the time of wedding the Tanaim, writing the Tanaim. Okay. Since until now he had no obligation, there is no debt. Consequently, it is all. There is obligation and penalty. Consider a single obligation. However, if at the time of writing Tanaim, he took the unconditional obligation for the amount of a dowry, and at the time of the wedding they wished to reach agreement to give son-in-law something in return for extended time, it is prohibited, for this is simple case of extending time of an obligation in exchange to additional payment. And as we said in CF3, and in order to arrange this, they must do it in a permissible manner. Okay, so I mean it's all one paragraph. I usually break down, but all one paragraph. Okay, so let's do from the beginning, and we're going to explain. It's a very interesting situation. So situation is as follows: it is permitted to add to the wedding dowry. So dowry is something, if somebody doesn't know, that the family, the father, usually the father of the bride is going to give them, like what is it, sign up bonus or something, right? So you're going to get married to my daughter, so okay, here I'm going to give you, I mean it's not like that she's defective or something, but like, so you have a good life, better life, so you can rent an apartment. You don't have to worry like for sometimes about money, something like that. Okay. So, for example, if he pledges dowry for his daughter, and the father-in-law stipulates that the son-in-law, that each year that the son-in-law will allow a dowry to remain with his father-in-law, the son-in-law will delay collecting it. Okay, so before we continue, so here's the stipulation. So father-in-law said, I'm going to give you 10,000, let's say, right? 10,000. And then he said, but if you allow this money, this 10,000, be with me, so it's yours. But if you allow them sit with me, maybe I'm going to use, maybe not, he does not have to explain. So for every year that it stays with me, I'm going to add. Let's say he says, I'm going to add 5%, 10%. Right? It's a lot. It's a lot. Absolutely a lot. Go try to make a business and may make 10%. Okay. Right? So it's a lot. Right? So what is the question is, what is the purpose? Maybe he wants to use this money. On one hand, he can give to the son-in-law, but if they don't have like any immediate need for money, he said, look, I'm better invest in the business, and I better like give them in 3 years, 5 years, whatever, more money. So what is the problem? If he would invest, maybe most likely that he is going to lose. But I a savvy investor, so I'm going to make him money, right? And usually people get married, they get a younger, and they're younger, and they can spend for the nonsense money. But if they like live on a budget, and they know that one time they're going to get the savings, so it's actually, I think it's much easier for their family life. That's the way I see it, right? Because free money is not good for them. Okay. So it is permitted. Okay. So let's see commentary. It is not considered extending the duration of the obligation in exchange to additional payment. As Kitzur goes to explain. So what he's saying, that it's not like we said that he said, I think in the CF3 or whatever it was, don't remember. He said, let me keep the money, right? To keep money like not a month as we literally agreed, but actually 2 or 3 or 5 months. And guess what? I'm going to pay you extra. So in that case, it is 100% Ribbis. Why? Because there is obligation, that person has obligation. So, and he's the owner of the money, right? Owner of the money, as we said, just to remind us, as soon as he took the loan, took money in his hand, he's 100% owner, and he can do whatever he wants, and he obligated to return this money. It doesn't matter what is going to happen, right? But in this case, there is no loan. It's just an agreement between the father-in-law and son-in-law that I'm going to give you this money as a gift. He does not owe him anything. So, for example, if a family is not rich, so they say, how much is a dowry? Dowry is, I don't know. There is no dowry, basically. Right? If she comes from a not rich family. I mean, that's why she comes from poor family. That's it. Zero dowry. Okay. So, meaning what I'm trying to say, it's there's no obligation. So now he says, it is not obligatory, but it is a gift. So a gift is it's not a loan. I'm not obligated to give the gift. Yeah, we learned. Yeah, it's proper. If you promise, you have to pay. But it's a different story. But right, so he would can get curse. Depends. A big gift, small gift. Did he realize? Did he expect to actually this deal to go through or not? That's a different story. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the free will gift, and he said, "I'm going to give you more of the gift. Right? I'm not obligated to give you 10,000, but guess what? Every year, if you leave this money with me, I'm going to add another 1,000. Okay." And that's what it is. Some people like who not financially smart, young people, they get married, or they cannot manage finances, so they always in trouble with money, right? But mid-age people, right? If they get married, so they more conservative. They will try to save up, try to buy their own place or something if it's possible. Right? If not possible, not possible. But they would be more careful with money. Okay, so maybe it's one of the reasons. So yeah, I'm willing to give you money, but you settle, you start your business, you start this and that, and then guess what? Right, when you're ready, so I'm going to give you this 10,000, 13,000, so you'll be able to buy yourself an apartment or something. Okay. and it is of the and it is as if he told him, I'm giving you a gift of such and such an amount by a certain time. Okay. So he said, I already promised you this amount, there is no problem. But guess what? At that time, a year from now, on this date, I'm going to give you another gift of 10% wherever you live with me. Right? I mean, of my money, of the dowry. So I don't want to confuse anybody. It's not wherever you live with me, of the dowry. And if I don't give it to you at that time, I will increase in such and such amount. So they turned the language a little around. So he said, I have to give you this gift, whatever I promised, this dowry. But if I don't give you by next year, at this date, so I'm going to add this additional gift. Right? I will increase the gift by such and such amount. So he can increase gift. It was voluntarily to begin with, right? So there is no problem, which is permitted. Since he does not owe him money, so that's very important. It's not like he borrowed money from this person and he asked for to use it and then pay more. No. So since he does not owe him money, he may incorporate such a condition as a part of the dowry obligation. So, okay, so absolutely legal, absolutely no problem. But if this is only if they made the stipulation immediately at the time of granting Tanaim. So we need to see what is Tanaim. Commentary. There is before obligation finalized. The Tanaim, literally conditions, is premarital contract contains obligation agreed upon both sides. Nowadays, it is quite common to use the name document that contains no monetary obligation at all and is for a practical purpose merely ceremonial in nature. Therefore, one who wishes. So, meaning today, I did not sign anything. Today, they did not even ask us. Okay, this rabbi who did chuppah, I don't know. Whatever. Right? As he said, many people don't write, but some people they do. Modern people, other people, whoever wants, right? It's like a prenuptial agreement. So if we're going to get divorced, or I'm going to die, right? So he said, have a factories, this and that. So I don't want it to go to you, right? So you're not going to inherit anything, basically, or only this amount. So if she agrees. So meaning that if she wants to show him that she's not marrying him for money. I mean, it's like in secular world there is something similar. Okay. So, but usually, as he said, it's what was it? It's left empty. But in our case, it's this is financial agreements, right? As he called it, conditions. So this conditions is that I'm promising you to give you a gift. Okay, so now it's not only empty words. I mean, not only as usual, not I don't want to call it empty. It's not only words, but it's written in this Tanaim, like attachment to the to Ksuba, that I obligated myself to give you such and such amount, and plus, if you allow me to keep this money, every year I'm going to add to the gift. Every year on top of this gift, I'm going to give you another gift. Okay, so if it's in this financial document, there is no problem. If after the fact, that's a problem because he already obligated. Therefore, one who wishes to add such a clause to an obligation of the dowry after the original marriage agreement has been agreed upon must consult halakhic authority to determine at what point the obligation takes place. Okay, so it's not such an easy thing, but in some sense it's like I don't know. I don't want to comment because it's a complicated issue. Okay. Continue. So, but our understanding is straightforward. Do it at the time you sign this financial obligations. Okay. Since until now he had no obligation, and there is no debt. Again, no obligation, no debt. So, but borrowing is when one person must repay to another. Why? Because it's another person's money. In this case, no. Right. Consequently, it is all. There is obligation and penalty. Consider single obligation. Okay. So penalty meaning if I don't pay you by this time, I'm obligate myself to give you extra gift. So it's like a condition. Okay. However, at the time of writing the Tanaim, he took an unconditional obligation for the amount of dowry. And at the time of the wedding, they wish to reach agreement to give a son-in-law something in return for extending the time. It is prohibited. Okay, but if they say no, you're going to get this amount no matter what, this 10,000, and something did not go through as sometimes it does, right? And they want to ask this guy for extension. So if they just say, apologize, I cannot deliver to you, like as I said on the wedding night, next day, like in a week from now, right? There is no problem. But in this case, he said, look, it did not work, and I want to pay in a few months from now. I want to recover my money. Otherwise, if you demand, I would need to sell my apartment. But if you're willing to wait, I'm going to compensate you for this wedding. So that's Ribbis 100%, since he's already in debt. Okay, so he's asking for extending the time for an obligation in exchange for additional payment. That's classic Ribbis. Okay, any questions on 1%? Checking time. Okay. Let's do one more. 24. And it says, the Ribbis prohibition does not apply to an idolater. One may thus both borrow money from and lend money to an idolater with interest. The final seifim of our Siman, primarily dedicated to discussion of the loss of the loan between Jew and an idolater, when another Jew has involvement in a loan. So if there is no problem with Jew and non-Jew, that's there's nothing to talk about. But here is the problem because there is a broker, right? Involvement in a loan. That's how I understand. The discussion begins with the presentation of halacha regarding loan made between a Jew and idolater, where another Jew is acting as surely or surety. I'm not sure. Surety. I'm not sure how to pronounce. Guaranteeing payment for the loan. Okay. Oh, so he's like co-signer or something. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's not broker. I think it's a co-signer. With regard to a Jew who borrows from idolater with interest, and another Jew is to serve as a guarantor. Here we go. Yeah, guarantor is a better word for me. If the matter of the obligation is such that the idolater may initially demand the payment only from the borrower, and only then he is unable to collect from the borrower, may he then demand the payment from a guarantor. It is permitted for the actual obligation is between the borrower and the lender, and one is permitted to pay ribbis to an idolater. Moreover, the guarantor repays the idolater. If a guarantor repays the idolater, the borrower must, when he has the funds, repay the entire amount, including ribbis to the guarantor. But if the manner of the obligation is such that the idolater may initially demand payment from the guarantor, if so, since the guarantor has assumed total responsibility for the loan, it is as the Jewish guarantor borrowed from the idolater, and in return lend the money to the Jewish borrower with interest. That's crazy. And this is prohibited, as the Jewish borrower is prohibited from paying interest to the Jewish guarantor. Okay, it sounds maybe a little complicated, but we'll try to figure out. Okay. Okay, so from the beginning, and we're going to see. So the ribbis prohibition does not apply to idolater, meaning between Jew and non-Jew, they can pay them interest and charge them interest. Of course, it must be like normal. Okay, whatever market price. So if it's 15%, 17%, you can borrow, you can lend them. Some credit cards I got, I don't know, I think I said like updated agreement. So now I think it says maybe even 22% or 23, like some crazy amount. It used to be up to 30%. Credit cards like 29.9, 21.7. I remember like they had to put in big letters, but now it's over 30. I think maybe I'm mistaken, but I think it's more than 30. So meaning if there is an industry standard, okay, yeah, you can lend them. Okay. So okay, this if the final seifim, meaning several, of our Siman, primarily, so Siman is a section, primarily dedicated to the discussion of the laws between the Jew and idolater, when the Jew has improved involvement in the law. So meaning this one Jew is actually on a side. He's a co-signer. Co-signer is the right word. Co-signer with this non-Jew, which is a problem. The discussion begins with a presentation of the halacha regarding a loan made between a Jew and idolater, but the Jew is acting surety, guaranteeing payment of the loan. So meaning what? So and in some cases when you have when you rent an apartment, for example, and a young couple, so I mean they so many times you want their parents, maybe both of them, be guarantors on that they're going to pay. So you try to collect money from them if you can. You take you go to the parents and say, you pay me, right? That's how it works. So this guarantor, it's a big responsibility. I had like my childhood friends said, can I send a daughter to your country to learn in college, and they only need somebody to be a guarantor. I said, they only need somebody to be a guarantor, meaning if she's getting trouble or whatever, so I would have to pay. She does not have medical insurance. If she goes to emergency room, they're going to ask me to pay. Like, why would I want to be guarantor? I mean, for sure, you're a very nice person, but that's too much. Unless somebody is very, very close. I mean, be a guarantor for your maybe kids or something, for your wife. I don't know. That's one thing. But for like a childhood friend daughter, teenage daughter, and why would I need it? The guy could not understand. He said, no. She's not going to do this. She's not going to do that. It's only your signature. It's nothing. It's not. Don't worry. It's formality. That's people think it's formality. It's formality if everything is going smooth. But as soon as something is not going to smooth, like, right? Guess what? Who they going to sue? Okay. So continue. With regard to a Jew who borrows from idolater. So now Jew borrows from idolater. Okay. So Jew is in the borrowing side. So as we said, there is no with interest, no problem. So far so good. And another Jew is to serve as a guarantor. As a guarantor. Okay. So now it's not like I said. It's in this case the Jews on one side of the equation. So a Jew borrows from a non-Jew, and this non-Jew said, so who is going to guarantee? Okay, I have my cousin who is going to guarantee. Okay, so two Jews, one borrowing and one guarantee that he's going to repay. So if the matter of the obligation is such that the idolater, may initially demand payment from the borrower. So it is allowed if they're going to demand payment from the borrower, and only then. I mean, but that's normal. But that's not how some if you're not careful how you write this contract, guarantor. So sometimes they would go directly to the guarantor. Why should I get involved with these kids if I can go to the father? Right. So, but if it was written that they have to go first to borrower, right? And only then he is unable to collect from the borrower. He may then demand the payment from the guarantor, right? It is permitted for the actual obligation between the borrower and the lender, and one is permitted to repay ribbis to idolater, right? So meaning that borrower does not have money. For example, he can come to co-signer and said, I apologize, I was not able to pay. Can I borrow money from you? So there is no problem whatsoever in this case. So he borrowed with the interest, let's say, to pay that guy off, right? There is no problem. Okay, because it's between the two Jews. Okay. Just one second. For the actual obligation between the borrower and the lender, and one is permitted to pay ribbis to idolater. No problem. Okay, so far so good. Moreover, if the guarantor repays the idolater, the borrower must, when he has funds, repay the entire amount, including ribbis, to the guarantor. So, or borrower pays to this non-Jew, and then the guarantor borrower does not have money. Guarantor pays all of the money to a non-Jew, right? And it is in some sense is a loan because the deal between them. So, and in some sense it is a loan to the borrower. But now this loan extended from the guarantor. So there is no problem of interest because he just getting this guarantor getting like whatever he spent. He's not getting extra. Okay. 1 second. But if the manner of the obligation is such that idolater may initially demand the payment from the guarantor, if so, I'm not sure why somebody would write this this way. It's beyond me, right? So meaning you have option to go to the borrower who actually borrowed money from you, or to go to the guarantor. Usually it's not the case, but I'm not sure. Maybe to give this guy like some advantage, right? So they say, you know what, we're going to pay. No worry. You don't even have to, if you don't bring the money by this day, you can demand money from each any of us, right? From the guarantor or from the borrower. That's the way I see it. Like to give them more like assurance that not to worry, everything would be good. You would not need to spend money first taking a borrower to the court and then the guarantor. Too much. Okay, no problem. Okay. So one more time the whole thing. But in the manner of the obligation is such that the idolater may initially demand payment from the guarantor, exactly as we just explained. If so, since the guarantor has assumed the total responsibility of the loan, so now guarantor must pay, right? It is as if Jewish guarantor borrowed from idolater. Okay, so far so good. And in turn lend the money to a Jewish borrower with interest. And this is prohibited. And the Jewish borrower is prohibited from paying interest to the Jewish guarantor. So let's understand what's going on. So the big picture is. So we're going to the big picture and then into details. Lender has an option. So again, it's very strange contract, but we explain. I just my ideas why would they said would put this clause that he can go to any of them. But I think it's logical. Right? I think I learned somewhere else some time ago, maybe a long time ago. Right? So. Okay, so and one second. So now, if this lender goes to a guarantor who does not owe him any money, right? But he owes just because the borrower could not pay, and this guarantor pays him money with interest, of course. So now this Jewish guy, right? One Jew, the borrower, who could not pay, like let's say he borrowed 1,000, right? So if he would pay to this non-Jew, he would pay like 1,300, let's say. So he borrowed 1,000, and now he would have to pay this Jew, right? This guarantor 1,300. On one side, on one hand, it looks like a reimbursement, whatever he paid for him, but it's not. Okay, why it's not reimbursement? It is as if the Jewish guarantor borrowed from idolater, right? Borrowed from idolater, and in return lend the money to a Jewish borrower. So he borrowed from idolater and give it to this guy, to the borrower, so the borrower can use the money. It's very interesting. Borrow and idolater, and in turn lend the money to a Jewish borrower with interest. And this is prohibited, as Jewish borrower is prohibited for paying interest to a Jewish guarantor, right? Because that's not what the borrower borrowed. He borrowed 1,000, and now he would need. It looks like he borrowed from the guarantor to pay to the lender, and now he would have to pay more to the guarantor, 1,300, which is a problem. Continue, same halacha. So too with regard to idolater, who borrowed from Jew with interest. So now the tables are turned, right? So now this non-Jew is borrowing from a Jew with interest, and another Jew serves as a guarantor. So that's what I actually initially had in mind, right? So the non-Jew is a borrower, and he has a cosigner as a Jew. If the manner of the obligation was such that the lender can initially demand payment from idolaters who borrowed the money, and only when he cannot recover the debt from idolater who borrowed, does he collect from the guarantor, it is permitted, since the obligation between the lender and the borrower. Okay, so again, exactly the same logic. I'm not going to read again, but we're going to explain since it's exactly as there. So we have a non-Jew borrow from a Jew, and this borrower has a co-signer as a Jew. So if the contract is written this way, that lender must go to the borrower, and only if the borrower cannot pay, he goes to the lender. So meaning the initial contract is between these two. So there is no second leg of contract. It's only one, and there is exceptional case. So that's that same contract. So he should have paid, but he did not. So now guarantor is going to pay. Okay. So again, there is no problem because the main actors is a borrower who is non-Jew and the lender who is a Jew. Okay. And they can pay interest to each other. Okay. But if the manner of the obligation was such that that he may demand payment initially from the guarantor as well, if so, the Jewish guarantor is like a borrower who borrowed money directly from another Jew, and it is prohibited. Okay, so again, it's exactly the same case but different actors. Okay, so in this very, very interesting case, when the lender can demand whether from a borrower or from guarantor, his choice. So if he goes directly to the guarantor, to another Jew, so meaning he asked him to pay the amount borrowed plus interest. So that's absolutely forbidden. Like very straightforward. Okay. So, but again, only because contract was written this way. If it was written only that he must go, the lender must go to the borrower, there is no problem. Okay. But if the Jew is a guarantor only for a principal, and not for Ribbis, it is permitted, since the Ribbis obligation is sole responsibility of idolater. That's a very interesting way around, right? I mean, not leniency. It's there's no leniency. If contract is written this way that, for example, he is borrowing again 1,000 and must repay 1,300. So, and he found a guarantor for 1,000. So this guy, say, okay, no, this Jew say, okay, at least I'm going to get my money back, guaranteed. Most likely, I'm going to interest in as well from this idolater. If not. So he said that I'm going to get from a Jew $1,000 back. Okay, no problem. Okay, so and interest only from idolater. With regard to halacha of a case of one Jew who borrows from a second Jew without interest, and another Jew will serve as a guarantor, and the Jewish borrower pays the guarantor for this service. Both Tas and Shach in Nikudas HaKesef rule leniently and allow it. However, note that the view of Havas Das, who rules stringently and forbid it. Okay, so let's try to understand. So now we're talking about one Jew. With regard to halacha of one Jew borrowed from a second Jew without interest. So far so good, right? Jew from Jew without interest, and another Jew will serve as a guarantor, but he does not want to be a guarantor. right? So, and the borrower said, I'm going to pay a service fee. So the way I understand, it's like there is such a thing as what is it, mortgage insurance, right? So like if some like you pay some time some fee because you're not very stable customer, and you risky customer, right? The more risky person is, the bigger is mortgage insurance, right? Right. So, and this guy, of course, they have to get paid somehow. Okay, so they say there is no problem. It's not an interest, right? Because right, it's not commentary. Since the guarantor does not lend the money but merely guarantees payment, compensating him does not consider Ribbis. I mean, this borrower did not borrow anything from this guarantor. He's just do like a side job. Maybe he most likely he would not need to do anything. Okay, so for services we're allowed to pay. Right, stop here.